If you listened to episode 134 with New Mexico dairyman Eric Palla, you got a glimpse inside the strategies and decisions that have guided growth, expansion, and diversification of Palla Dairies. From consolidating facilities to hiring a key manager to raising all of their own replacements, combined with genomic testing to optimize their beef on dairy strategy. Well, Eric's back with us today, and we get a glimpse of how this forward-thinking dairyman and businessman views the future of his dairies and the industry, and what he's doing to up-level his own leadership. And you'll find that all here today on the Up-Level Dairy Podcast. This is the podcast for dairy farm owners, managers, and advisors who are committed to profitability, sustainability, and excellence. I'm Peggy Coffeen, and it's my mission to bring you the conversations that will up-level your skill set and your mindset, so you can be a top performer in the dairy farming business. And this episode is brought to you by Zoetis. As the world's leading animal health company, Zoetis is dedicated to helping producers achieve healthy animals, healthy dairies, and healthy food through their world-class portfolio. For more information, visit dairywellness.com. And stick around to the end of this episode to hear from Nick Randle, U.S. Senior Marketing Lead for Dairy Productivity and Milk Quality with Zoetis, to talk about how today's dairy producers are putting genomic testing innovations to work as a means of raising healthy, productive dairy cows that will help them thrive in today's ever-changing dairy landscape and achieve dairy goals well into the future. Enjoy these conversations today with Eric Palla and Nick Randle, right here on the Up-Level Dairy Podcast. So we've dug into these things that you've really identified as being kind of the needle movers and good decisions in the last 10 years at Palla Dairies. And this last one we really dug into was not just bringing calves home, but the integration of beef on dairy, bringing in genomics as a tool to be able to do that. And so we spent a lot of time kind of talking about what has led you to where you're at today. And now I want to shift gears and look a little bit ahead into the future. And you're a forward thinker, and your dad also. So when you think about the future, what must be true for you to be satisfied with where things are at the dairies 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What must happen in your eyes for you to be satisfied with where things are at?
I think we just want first of all, a profitable, successful family business. We don't want to work all day to not make a profit. And this industry has been really tough, I think, and our area has been extremely difficult to have a profitable business a year in and year out. And so I think that we want to be successful. We want to be positioned with enough diversity in our business to be profitable year in and year out. And so that's what I would consider at this point to be successful, and to keep it a family business, keep it operating for a long time, have new family members come in, be able to work together and take their own opportunities into what they want and need and mold it into their own.
So looking at how can you be best positioned for that profitability and that version of success, which means bringing some people from the family back into the business and keeping it a family business. And so, with that thought in mind, what do you see as the challenges that are on the horizon? What could get in the way? And all of the things that you see in your world where you live in your immediate area, but you're involved in big conversations. So you have this perspective that is really far beyond Clovis. You're able to be in conversations through being a member of the DFA board, through select sires, and just through being a person that's looking ahead at the future and having those voices around you from your dad and others that think in that same capacity. So challenges, issues, what could get in the way of that dream coming true?
To be in this business, you have to be optimistic all the time, or else you need to just probably not be doing this. Agriculture in general. I think everybody that's involved in agriculture is an optimist, that they're going to need food. You need water to grow food. I think milk is probably the most nutritious single product that there is, period. And I think the ability to do this over time is going to get harder and harder just because you don't have the people coming back to the businesses to operate them. So I think long term, I'm optimistic about the dairy business. I think the beef on dairy makes me very optimistic about the dairy business. I think some of the moves of some tier pricing, some things that a lot of people don't like, but I think has been good for the dairy business and made it maybe where long term it's viable. And I think the rest of the world does not have the capacity to expand production like the United States does. So I think the
Mm.
world market and us being present in it and good at it and making the products that can be sent throughout the world will also be very, very important to the industry. So I'm optimistic.
Was your dad's pretty optimistic guy too, I bet, huh?
Yeah, he is. Yes.
You just touched on some good things, right? Like the opportunity in the world marketplace. And so that's looking beyond New Mexico. That's looking at how you can compete and contribute at a much bigger scale and a much bigger playing field than a local marketplace. Okay, fast forward me 10 years. You're on these co-op boards, you're having these conversations. What does dairy in the US look like 10 years from now?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I think you're going to continue to see consolidation. I think we need to the industry needs to grow and make products that are good both home in the US and obviously can fill market space in the world market as well. I think that the farmers need to be paid a good price for their milk. I think there's processing being built, there's things that are happening that within the industry I think you can tell they've done well, and the producers I think have struggled over the last 10 years. So hopefully the growth is in processing and stuff is in conjunction with the farmer to be able to make a good living producing the milk that they need to process into the products that are getting sold in the stores and everywhere around the world. And I think over time, there's a good chance that's going to happen. So,
What do you think it'll take?
well, unfortunately, it'll take probably not having enough milk around for them to realize that we haven't been doing well. And I don't know if that's really happening today or not, but it sure seems like it's a little bit short. And I think the industry, I think the producers have just, for us, it's been a struggle the last 10 years. I mean, it's been a difficult ride. And I don't think we're outliers in that.
You touched on too, Eric, when you look at the future of your own business, of wanting to set it up to be successful so that you're able to bring in family members, and you have a son that's coming back to the dairy right now, correct?
Yes, he's been here a couple of years now.
And what's your son's name?
Jack.
So Jack is now back in the operation. He's 23.
Yes.
Does he remind you a little bit of you when you came back?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Yeah.
So there's a good chunk of our listenership that are in that age category. So just kind of coming back to the dairy or in their early careers of management on dairies. What's your advice to them, whether it's Jack or whether it's somebody else that's like him? What's the best advice that you would give your own 23-year-old self when you first set foot back on the dairy after going off to college at Texas and coming back home?
I think one, you've made a big decision in your life to come back to a family business. And so I think I did. I think he is. Just be committed to it and do it because you want to do it because you love to do it. And then while you're doing it, you struggle, right? You're going to have your struggles. You're going to have employee issues. You're going to have cow issues. You're going to have equipment problems that you struggle with every day. But you're going to have your accomplishments along the way. That idea or something you want to change in the business or your own growth opportunity that you bring to the business and say, hey, this is looks like a great idea, or I think we can make this work. And then be proud of those accomplishments. It's not an easy business, and sometimes you need to stop and smell the roses a little bit when you've accomplished something, and reach a milestone that you've been shooting for. I think that part's important.
That's such a good point. So much good advice in what you just said. And kind of what I hear in that is like, take the moment to celebrate the wins. And if you don't do that, like you said, it can be daunting, right? It's a challenging industry. It's a challenging environment. And if you don't take those time to celebrate those wins, to stop and smell the roses, as you put it, that's kind of the fuel that keeps your fire going, isn't it?
I think so. I think otherwise you're just bogged down in just getting it done. And I think in our world, we just worry about getting it done, and then you don't ever really look back and see what you did. And I think it's would be gratifying to go, man, look, we did this. This took us 2 years to do this, and look how it's doing, and let's celebrate, or let's get together and say, hey, this is cool. Call some friends or whatever. Just be proud of what you do.
Absolutely. And when you're always in forward motion, it's easier said than done to stop, right? Like, it is easier to keep moving than to stop.
Absolutely.
It's a discipline. It's a discipline all of its own, isn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't take much. I think sometimes with your family or friends or whatever, I think it's just, and it's not to say, hey, look what I did. It's just take a breath and just kind of stand there and go, wow, you really think about it, that was a big deal. That was hard to do, or that was hard to get done, but we did it. And so, and then the next day you get back to work.
So with that in mind, what's the win that you can celebrate right now? What's the rose that you can smell today?
Well, we've been working on a digester project that's almost done. So that's going to be the one that I think when it's completed and operational, it's a collaboration with another company, but it's something that we worked hard at to get put together for something that we think will work for us and for them. So when it's completed, I think that'll be the next one the one that we'll definitely celebrate.
That will definitely be worth celebrating. A big project coming to completion, and hopefully a project that only results in good things for your dairy in more ways than one going forward. And part of what you talked about too, with bringing that diversification into the business and just one more way to have a business within the business. This has been fun, Eric, to just walk through the little bit of the backstory behind the dairies and also the growth and some of the challenges along the way, but also more importantly, how you've been able to overcome them and how you look towards the future. And my favorite thing to do at the end of any conversation with a dairyman is to pick your brain one last time with 5 questions. And these are my core 5 questions. I call the up level 5. And I'm excited to hear your perspective on them. And that question number 1 that I have for you, Eric, is what does success look like to you?
I think it's to have a balanced work, family, and social life. I don't think you can have any one or two of those without the third and not feel like you were successful. So I think for me, that's what success looks like, is to just have a good business, a great family, and good friends to spend time with. I think that's what success looks like to me.
So has that ever been hard to try to hit that balance?
Oh yeah, that's a challenge every day. Yeah.
What works for you? How do you build in that? Business time, family time, friends time?
I do pretty good at one day and better at another day, but sometimes it's hard. It's not easy to put all 3 of those together and all the time. I mean, you have your moments, but that's what I think success is, and I don't know that I'm there yet.
It's a constant strive, right? So that's success for you is, I'm going to call it balance between those buckets. And I think that's something that a lot of us can relate to, whether we're in the dairy business and in the seat that you're in or doing something else. It's the truth, and you speak to that. And okay, question number 2 I have for you, Eric. In 3 words, how do you want to show up each day?
Ready for anything.
Now, is that by choice or is that just a learned behavior?
That's a learned behavior.
All right. Number 3, who are the thought leaders that you follow? And so by thought leaders, you can take this any way you want. It might be an author. If you have people within your own family, bloggers, thought leaders? Take it any way you want.
I don't do much social or any social media for that matter, so I don't really have anybody there. I think it's going to sound pretty narrow, but my thought leader is probably my dad. I really think if I have an issue or a problem with anything, not with the dairy, it can be anything, or just to think something through. He's probably my thought leader day in and day out. And then there's industry people that I lean on that I'll call if I want to bounce off ideas or talk to other dairymen around the country that I look up to, think are great operators. I think that's who I turn to when I just need some new thoughts.
I'm guessing there might be others that would have your dad on their list too. Okay, question number 4. What are the words you live by?
I think my only words I live by is to just be thankful. Just every day be thankful for whatever it is that's great that day. Be thankful, because there's a lot of things out there that people have to deal with that are much more difficult than things that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I'm just thankful for, our business, my family, our health, friends. So just rain, whatever's that day, just be thankful.
That's some pretty solid advice. 2 words that say it all. And question number 5, Eric, what's your next up level? What's your next area, personally, professionally, that you are looking to take to a new level right now?
I think right now I've just started to get involved in the cooperative world, leadership world, and I want to be my best I can at that and see what it entails and what I can learn, what I can offer. And so right now that's part of my life that is new and exciting, that I'm taking to the next level.
Just take a moment, explain what your role looks like there right now.
So I'm an area council member, and then now recently, I guess it's been 2 years now, on the corporate board. So learning the business side of our cooperative has been exciting.
I bet, especially for you having just an interest in a diversified business of your own. How much have your eyes been opened?
It's just exciting to see, and they have great employees and leadership, and it's a large scale business that has been successful and hopefully continues to be successful.
And you get to be a part of that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Well, congratulations to you on that role. That is your next personal up level, and one more thing that you're able to do to bring value to the industry and bring value back to your business, and also to challenge yourself and to challenge your everyday, and to keep you being exactly what you said, optimistic and being thankful. And so, Eric, this has been fun and enjoyable. I am thankful to you for taking the time to really not just share the story of your dairy, a little bit of the past, looking at the future, but really the core of who you are as a dairyman, as a businessman, as a family man. That's a great gift to all of us in the industry that have great leaders that we can look to and learn from and hear from. And thanks for taking the time to have that conversation with me today on Up Level Dairy Podcast.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity and for the invite. I really enjoyed it.
You just heard from Eric Palla with Palla Dairies in New Mexico. And if you missed the first part of our conversation with Eric about the 3 business decisions that have had the highest impact in the last 10 years at Palla Dairies, head back to episode 134. And now let's hear more about how today's dairy producers are putting genomic testing innovations to work as a means of raising healthy, productive dairy cows that will help them thrive in today's ever-changing dairy climate and achieve dairy goals well into the future in this very special Sponsor Spotlight. I'm Peggy Coffeen with the Up Level Dairy Podcast, and I'm here at the National Holstein Association Convention annual meeting. And joining me here in Salt Lake City, Utah is Nick Randle, the U.S. Senior Marketing Lead for Dairy Productivity and Milk Quality with Zoetis. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me, Peggy.
And Nick, we've been partnering through Uplevel Dairy Podcast and Zoetis to share some of the successes of the customers that you work with. But this leads back to the efforts that are going on within Zoetis, within your research team, within your collaborations within the industry, to really look at genomics particularly and how that piece of the puzzle can improve viability and profitability at the farm level and so far beyond, right out into the food supply. And so we're going to take a few minutes to dig a little bit more into genomic testing, the doors that's opening up for producers to be able to optimize their own future and their own herds, and what that all looks like with the work that you are leading and the producers that you serve. Why don't you take a minute, Nick, and tell us about the innovations in genomic testing that are having an incredible impact and a measurable impact on the dairy producers that you work with.
Oh, thanks for that, Peggy. When we look back to 2010 when we started genomic testing at Zoetis, it was obviously a long set of traits. It was a lot of information, and we've been able to really evolve that over the years, and especially as we introduced Clarified Plus in 2016. It was pretty exciting to bring those first disease-resistant traits to the market, allowing the Holstein producers to start visualizing what it looks like to actually select against mastitis and lameness, and taking that data today, that's now allowed us through Dairy Wellness Profit Dollars, our index, to have a higher focus on profitability, sustainability, carbon footprint, those types of things. And when you look at the specific information within DWP, it's giving that power of being able to right-size your heifer population, really focus on your breeding, specifically towards what you want to do today and for the future. And it's driving on that lifetime profitability overall. And DWP is one of those things that we've been able to actually prove that it does drive that lifetime profitability through the Journal of Dairy Science. We've got 5 papers that focus on that. And I think that it's really an insightful piece of information for our customers and obviously producers everywhere to say, I can take this set of data, put it into a very easy to use index, and honestly create the herd that I want for tomorrow.
And so, Nick, you've shared this history of what dairy wellness has really brought forth for the dairy producer, and that's empowering them with the ability to actually manage things genetically like mastitis and lameness and the health of their animals. And as you explain how that has really evolved from the ground level, we're at a point now where you're able to take this information and take it to a higher level of impact, and that's through sustainability. So take a moment and just explain how what we've been doing, what producers that you work with have been doing as they gather this data, that now they have access to something that can help be part of their own sustainability story and their sustainability future.
So one of the things that we found out with our correlations of DWP is that it actually does drive on some of these metrics that we've been focusing on and been talking a lot about here recently and towards our future. So looking at methane production, looking at antibiotic usage, looking at carbon footprint. And we've had a few studies where we've actually gone and done that correlation to show how we're actually reducing a lot of these interactions for the environment. And so for us, one of the big things is partnerships. And so recently we've had a study with Farmers for Sustainable Food and the EDGE Cooperative, and focusing on how animals born in 2015 and 2016, roughly 8,000 of them, have been able to improve lifetime profitability, but also at the same time reduce methane production, reduce antibiotic usage, and ultimately, shrink that carbon footprint. The methane side of things is pretty exciting because not only was it reduced each year in those birth ranges, but also we had a 9% improvement from 2015 to 2016. So we actually reduced that methane again another 9%, and we're talking over 15 metric tons of methane. And so as you look at that, and you look at what we're doing also with Dairy Management Inc. and working with them from a genetic perspective, allowing our producers to have so much data that's easy to use, and at the same time, it's all at the same cost, right? This is information that they're getting because they've chosen to participate in genomic testing, and it's allowing them to obviously communicate what they've been doing in the past and what they're going to do in the future.
And so, Nick, as you walk through those impacts and those collaborations, you're touching on some really key things, some key terms that are coming up in our conversations every day in the dairy industry now, whether that's methane reduction, antibiotic use reduction, or really looking at how we can extend the lifetime productivity of our animals. And what you've just shared with us is how the data that some producers have been collecting for years, now the power of it is just amplified. And also, you're able to measure this through those collaborative partnerships with Farmers for Sustainable Food and also through Dairy Management Incorporated. So just a powerful story of real life data that impacts the farm decision making at that level, but now years later is now a powerful tool in telling dairy's story for the future. And so for listeners out there that are really intrigued by some of these successes that producers themselves have had with this data and information and how it's really come to play in their business models, tell us a little bit about how they can learn more about Clarified Plus and some of the other opportunities to work with Zoetis to help them write their own sustainability stories for their future.
As you stated, obviously the producer stories are what mean the most. And I think that anybody who's interested in genetics or milk quality or anything to do with their operation, they want to know, has somebody actually already done this? Have they had a good experience? And those stories are very impactful. And so our podcast series that we started back in 2020 is called Clarity at Work. That's at clarifiedplus.com. It's downloadable on Spotify and all the major podcast platforms. We do that. We talk about how it's driving information for customers, not just from the profitability standpoint, but the sustainability standpoint, how it's connecting to other data like sensor information. And obviously, too, we've done some things with UpLevel and that partnership, and we're starting to tell more stories of our customers and what they feel is most valuable to them. And I think that those are highly impactful pieces of information, not just from a product standpoint, but honestly from their operations history and where they want to go.
So many stories to share, some of which we partner with right here on the UpLevel Dairy podcast, but also for those listeners that would like to just learn a little bit more, would like to hear straight from other producers themselves about how their data is empowering them to make business decisions today, but also empower them to be positioned to be sustainable and profitable businesses for the future. And they can find those particular stories through Clarity at Work and clarifiedplus.com. And so thank you again, Nick, for joining me here to talk about a little bit of the history of genomics and the work that Zoetis has been doing, but more importantly, about how this work is positioning dairy producers for a bright future, a sustainable future, and a profitable future for their farming businesses and their families. Thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you.